Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, where it's the best place to learn about Canadian finance. Now, it's almost October, it's another month, so it's time for another real estate market update. So for this month, a lot happened and a lot of the predictions we've made in the previous videos are starting to show up in the market trend right now. So I have a lot prepared for you guys. Without further ado, let's really jump into it. Alright, so before we start, just a reminder, make sure you like this video because for every week the videos we push out, we spend hours on it researching and making sure the content we bring to you guys are useful and practical. So by you liking it, it helps with the YouTube algorithm to push it to more Canadians who might benefit from these information as well. Now, second thing is for this video, we compile a lot of data and charts into PDF, so we will be uploading them into our private group in Facebook. If you haven't joined already, make sure you click the link to join in the description below. Alright, so I have three major stats and updates I really want to look at in this video. The number one would be the general media consensus on the housing market right now. So I decided to add this because interestingly, yesterday I met a brand new client and we just sat there and we're talking a little bit about real estate, and he made a comment saying that the real estate market in Vancouver is really bad right now. I think it's time for me to use some money and buy a rental property to build my cash. And that was a little bit surprising because just last month everyone was saying how hot the market is. So I just asked him, hey, why do you think the market is not doing well? And he just told me, oh, I actually don't know. It's just the news are saying so. So I guess it's not doing well. So that got me curious and I decided to look at the last 3 months of headlines that are trending in the real estate market. So as we see on the screen, we're seeing in July, it's super strong and super hot market. That's what top 5 headlines are saying. In August, we're still saying sales are strong, it's pretty good, but there could be some issues, be careful. And then now at September, all the headlines are saying that we're expecting a market drop and sales is slow, etc. Now, do you see how quickly the mood have changed? This is actually quite unheard of and it's happening quite fast because usually when the market is hot, it stays really hot for the next 6 to 9 months. At least the media is going to report so. But in this situation, the hot market didn't even last a full 3 months. And this is also important because real estate market, even though it's an illiquid market, it is still a market after all. And just like other markets, all buyers and sellers are driven by sentiments. And whether you like it or not, your emotions are going to be affected by the news. So when the news is all reporting the market is very hot, just like summer, what you're going to see is people that were on the fence, you will be pushed to think that if I don't buy right now, I'm going to miss out. But the opposite will also apply. When the news are all saying market is going to be very slow, sales are slow, price are dropping, the sellers that were on the fence will now be pushed to try to list the house as quickly as possible before the actual drop is coming. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When the market initially moved, it might not have moved that much by itself, but once everyone is saying the same thing, it will really drive that direction to the extreme. And this quick turnaround is not a surprise if you have been watching videos on this channel. For the last couple of videos, we have been seeing that all these demand in the summer that have driven the price to a new high are pent up demand from the last 6 months of unable to go out and hunt for houses. So once all these demands are satisfied, it is unlikely to be able to keep up at the same rate, and we'll see a very quick turnaround in sales speed and also pricing as we're seeing right now. However, to really see what's going on in your specific market, we really have to dive in and look at specific data. So let's move on and look at the second component, which is rent. Now, if you have been watching my videos, you know rent is very important because it will dictate how incentivized people are when it comes to selling. When rent is low, inventory will stack up because investors no longer see it makes sense to keep holding these rental properties if it's not generating the same amount of revenue as before. So looking at rentals.ca in the September report, we can see that rent for the last 3 months has actually evened out and stayed at the same level. And if we dive in and look at by property types, we can see that from year to year, houses have dropped on average 12% rent across Canada, and condos have dropped by 14% across Canada. But these stats are across Canada, and by province, it might be completely different. For example, if we break it apart and we look at by province, we can see that across the board, actually some provinces have increased rent on average year to year, while others have dropped significantly. But the one that you should pay attention to is Quebec it has recorded a 15% plus increase year to year when it comes to rent. Now, one thing to note is that these stats are mixing all types of property together for each province. So it doesn't really tell us a lot of information, but it should be noted that Quebec on average have seen #1 increase in rent compared to other provinces. Now, if we isolate and just look at condos by itself, we can see across major cities, the average price per square foot of rent have dropped, and also the average rent have dropped. So usually when price per square foot is dropping, average rent should drop as well. However, some cities are not like that. For example, Calgary, the average rent have increased, but the price per square foot have dropped. So what does that mean? So what that means is people in Calgary are actually renting bigger places like 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom or bigger, which will have a higher dollar amount rent on average than a 1-bedroom, but the price they're paying per square foot is actually lower than before. Now, on the other hand, Montreal is the complete opposite. Average rent on paper has dropped, but the price per square foot have not. So what that means is either people are downsizing to a smaller condo, or there are more people coming into Montreal and renting smaller units, which I think is the more likely scenario. So if rent is going to stay the same level on average for foreseeable future, then I'll really see inventory stack up across all provinces except for Quebec. Quebec's rent is actually increased quite a bit, so I don't think that same thing applies to Quebec compared to other cities. Now, as for future of rent, unless COVID is being solved in the near future, I don't see rent going back up anytime soon. On the other hand, we have to pay attention to how many completions are being done in the next 1 or 2 years. These could be potential inventories that people are renting out, which will stack to the rental inventory, which might further push rent down. And in the future videos, that's also something I will research into to see where we are for the rental inventory. Alright, so our next update we should be looking at are the actual trend for buying and selling when it comes to different cities. Now, for this video, to make sure it doesn't go super long, I'm going to be giving you summaries of my research and findings on different cities. I'm going to include detailed charts in the private Facebook group. So if you want those charts and download for yourself and search for your specific area, make sure you request to join in the link below. Alright, so let's look at Vancouver and start with some macro view. So if we head over to Zolo.com, we can see a couple of things going on. Keep in mind, at the time of recording, we have not done September yet, so it's not a complete data set, but we're close enough to the end that I think it paints a pretty accurate picture of what's going on already. Now, if we look at this graph, we can see clearly that sales have slowed down significantly while inventory have been stacking up. This gap between inventory and sales is getting larger and larger, and I expect it's going to continue to grow for some foreseeable future. So when the gap gets bigger, what that means is months of inventory is going to stack up. When the months of inventory are stacking, it will reach to a point that it will go from a seller's market to a neutral market and then to a buyer's market. Now, we're still some time away from a complete buyer's market, but as we can see in the trend, we are heading there. So if we jump to myrealty.ca, which is another great site that displays most recent price change across BC, we can see that the average price is 4%, just like last month. And we can see that overall, there has been a lot more downward change versus upward change. This is expected, and we have been talking about this for a couple of videos already. Now, keep in mind, this month's drop does not add up to last month. So for example, if last month, as we can see, overall have dropped about 4%, it doesn't mean in total 2 months, all prices have dropped 8%. That's not how it works, because it's just recording all recent changes. So some change could be multiple drops from existing listing, while other drops are brand new listing who just been put on market this month. However, this site does do a very good job of tracking what properties have gone through multiple listing changes. And if you come here yourself and scroll to the bottom, it will show you all the ones that have gone through multiple changes. Now, I've been playing around with some website and diving into a specific market to see how many are actually multiple changes. It seems like the website can only show the top 80 changes because it always stops at 80. It doesn't go over that. So what that means is there are a good number of inventory that are really not selling, either because they have asked for way too high price in the beginning, or demand for houses, which is where most multiple changes are coming from, are really low. So not many people are buying a house. Maybe that's also the case. but in general, we are seeing a downward trend in pricing. Now, lastly, just to correspond to everything we've been saying, I visited officially.com, which is another good website that tracks buying and selling volumes. So according to a report, they're saying that the sales have dropped dramatically in September from a previous 409 condos in August down to 202 in September, so only half the speed. And then 212 houses to 114, 99 townhouses to 49. So as you can see, across all types of properties, sales have slowed down 50% compared to last month. Alright, next, let's look at Ontario. So like Vancouver, we're going to dive into Zillow.com and look at some stats first. Now, as you can see, sales have leveled out, but inventory are skyrocketing. It's going up even faster than Vancouver. This is no surprise because Toronto is one of the hardest hubs for Airbnb. So as COVID happened and Airbnb units die out, most investors will turn them into long-term rental while looking to sell them. So this is why we're seeing inventory go up significantly in Toronto. So since Bungle.ca is still down, we're gonna use House Sigma just like last video. And just like last video, mainly we'll be looking at house absorption rate, which tells us how fast something is selling versus how many are being listed. This is very important because it will tell us what kind of market we're in for a specific area. Now, 30% or lower absorption rate is going to be an official buyer's market. 30% to 60% is going to be a neutral market. Anything higher than 60% is going to be a seller's market. So what I've done is just like last video, I've included a chart that summarizes all cities in Ontario and all types of properties. What are their absorption rate according to House Sigma and what market we're in, and also how is the overall market change for that area compared to last month? Did the absorption rate drop or stay the same or went up? This will tell us what are we seeing in terms of inventory. So as we can see on the chart, a lot of the markets are back into buyer's market. And most markets have dropped significantly when it comes to absorption rate. The sales have become sluggish and inventory are stacking up exponentially, especially condo market. Alright, so the last city we'll be looking at is Quebec. One of the readers have sent me a very good website called Centris, which has data on Montreal. Now, I've looked into it, but as of the recording, they have not updated to a new number for Q3. But what I've done is through Centris, I found a report by Quebec Professional Association of Real Estate Brokers, which partner with Centris. We can see that overall inventory is quite low in Quebec compared to last year. So with high rent, low inventory, I really don't see price trend down anytime soon. In fact, I expect it might go up even more. Now for the detailed report which talks about each city in detail, I've included the whole report in the description below. Make sure you click the link to download it for yourself. Alright, so before I draw a conclusion, let's look at some things we should pay attention to moving forward which will dictate how the housing price will be. And there are three major things. Number one is mortgage deferral. So if you watch my other videos, you will know that mortgage deferrals are coming to an end this month. And as the video talked about, a lot of people might get very surprised when a new payment schedule kicked in. And I foresee not everyone, but definitely a good portion of them will have financial hardship once the new payment kicks in. We could see a whole lot more inventory being added to the market, either through foreclosure or people just see it not worth it to hold a mortgage anymore and they're trying to get out of the market by selling. So once deferral is ending for the next 3 to 6 months, we really have to pay attention to what the banks are reporting when it comes to people having difficulty to handle their mortgage payment. Now, second thing we need to pay attention to is the speed and the effectiveness of a vaccine. As we know in Canada, the second wave is actually here already. The numbers are spiking and increasing every day. So for the foreseeable future, I really don't see offices reopening again. In fact, some cities are near red alert level again and might have to go back into a quarantine. So if vaccine takes another 4 to 6 months to really effectively roll out for everyone, then at least for the time being, work from home is probably going to still be the major trend. And what that means is the demand for rental is not going to be any different than what is happening currently. So likely demand and rent is going to stay at a lower level. Now the last thing we need to look at, which is what I talk about in the initial videos already, is the next stage of the real estate market, is sellers holding out. So way before I've already said that when rent drops, inventory will increase and then sales is going to stagger and price is going to get a lot of downward pressure. When that happens, price will not necessarily drop right away, because most sellers would rather hold it at a higher price and just not sell until financially they're being pressured to do so. And I think right now we're entering the beginning of sellers holdout stage. If more people cannot hold out and we reach a critical mass, we might reach a tipping point where majority of sellers will start panic selling by really lowering the price by a lot. We've seen this time and time again. However, I'm gonna make it clear, it's much easier to get into the buying craze than the opposite, to jump into the selling craze. Because selling at a big discount is a potential loss of revenue, and it takes people a lot longer and much harder to reach that kind of stage. But it could happen if enough people is lowering the price. So as we head towards the end of 2020 and into 2021, I will also be keeping an eye on what's the overall sentiment when it comes to sellers selling their properties. Alright, so I want to give some afterthought and draw some conclusion for this video. Now, if you recall from the very first videos when I talk about the invisible crash, we have been saying there are cracks in the pre-sale market for a couple of months already, and likely it's going to extend to the overall market. Other properties are not going to be immune to what is happening in the pre-sale market. We've also discussed that pent-up demand are temporary, and be very careful before you get sucked into the same narrative that everyone is talking about, that house prices will always go up and demand is very hot, and if you don't buy now, you're going to miss out. We have been cautioning our audience a lot for a couple months already. And I'm saying all this not as a I told you so kind of conclusion, nor am I saying all these corrections are right because we're smart or we know some secret info. That's not the point. The point is, from the very beginning, we've been only looking at facts and actual numbers and trying to make educated guess of what is about to come based on what's actually happening with the numbers. And by looking at facts, it's very clear that there just aren't enough fundamental in the economy, in the market as a whole, to support what is really happening during summer. And the point I want to make is, doesn't matter what situation you're in, either you're an investor, you already have a house, or you're looking to buy, it's very important for you to cast aside what you want to happen and focus on what is actually happening in front of you. So for example, I have multiple properties for myself. So what I want to see is price keep going up forever. That's what I want to see as a property owner. But that is not what is actually happening when I look into the numbers and look at what's happening in the economy overall. It would be very easy or lazy for me to just tell you, oh, price is going to go up because I want it to go up, so price is going to go up. That not only is lazy, but it's also going to put me or you in a potential bad position moving forward. So what I want to say is, when it comes to real estate, which is probably one of the biggest purchases we'll make in our life, you really have to focus on numbers, especially on your own situation. Make sure you're comfortable with all the numbers, for example, mortgage payment, potential cost of holding this property, and really understand what is your range of volatility you can handle and what is something you can't handle, and see how likely it is to go out of your range before you really decide you want to move forward with something or not. That's really the point of me making all these videos. So I hope by watching these videos, you can get a better sense of what's going on around your area and thus make a much better educated decision. Alright, if you like these contents, I do upload them every Tuesday, 8:30 EST. So make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. Click the bell button so you get all the notifications in the future. Alright, this is Jacky. I hope you found this interesting. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye!